The power of word. Most of us don't think much about our words. We just use them indiscriminately, not necessarily saying what we mean, not necessarily meaning what we say. Not realizing that this is actually a creative act that we're doing, and what we send out into the world by means of our word is frequently what we end up getting. The most important place to be aware of your words is what are you saying to yourself inside your own head. Sometimes it's a very nasty conversation, very disempowering, very destructive, and it keeps us stuck where we are. It's all a matter of perspective in so many ways. It depends on where your focus is. If you are busy defining whatever you're experiencing in one kind of way, that's going to be how you're going to experience it. It's not the only way it can be defined, but it's the way we're defining it at the moment. Let's take a moment and look at some of the stuff that goes on inside our own head through means of word. Frequently, we have this story that we tell ourselves about the way things were, how that contributed to who we are today, who we are, what we're capable of. We have a lot of story in there, and a lot of it is not particularly empowering. A lot of it is really rather destructive. When you're busy telling yourself all about your limitations or your failures in the past, that doesn't exactly set you up where you're free to make new experiences or to express yourself in new ways. And the words we choose, listen to them I challenge you, listen to them for about a week. Listen to what you're telling yourself inside your own head. Don't particularly judge it, just observe it. See what it is you're saying. And then after that first week, and you can even write that down because it's very enlightening to see what kind of things are going on inside your own head. Then you start questioning, is that the only way that can be defined? Is that the only way that that could be experienced? When you start questioning, is that the only, then you can see that there are cases where another word or several other words could equally apply to that situation. You may see how you're limiting yourself with what you're telling yourself. Like, oh, I'm too fat to be attractive. Yeah, that one's one I've had in my own head. It's not a pleasant conversation, and it's not true because there are more than a few people that relish the different body types. Super skinny is not attractive to everybody, even though that's what we're told over and over again through the mainstream media's messages. That would be another thing to question as well. Are you listening to the mainstream media? And what is it that they're telling you? And how much truth is actually involved? In the mainstream media, not a whole lot of truth in many cases. So, let's take a look at the factor of perspective. When you're dealing with something, you can make that into a really big thing, or you can make it really small. You have a challenging time in life, like you're getting through something that's really tough, and if you're focused in a bigger perspective, then that's going to be a barely noticeable pothole in the scheme of life. But if you're focused on the issue at hand, that can become an all-consuming Grand Canyon that you have to cross from a smaller perspective. And it's simply a matter of changing our perspective frequently. Most of us don't realize that we can do that with just deciding to. We have a lot more freedom in our thoughts than we realize. They're not the fixed things that we think they are. We can choose new definitions to apply to the same situation. And we can choose to take a bigger view of it by looking at the whole range of life, or we can choose to look at it through a microscope and make it seem really, really huge. Some hurts and some challenges you encountered in childhood can be magnified to the point that they cripple you as an adult. Nobody gets out of childhood, okay? We all have our issues from childhood. It's what are you doing with it in the long term that really matters. And we have a choice in how we choose to define any particular event we're living in. For instance, just changing the word, change it from problem to possibility or opportunity or growth, and it has a whole different spin on it. Yes, you may be facing challenges in your job, but if you define it as a challenge, not a problem, you get a whole new range of possible actions that can be taken. One of my favorite examples is about the power of the words we choose is the experience of riding a roller coaster. Physiologically, you have an experience when you ride a roller coaster. Now, that experience can be arbitrarily defined as fear or excitement. Whichever words you pick to define what you're experiencing is going to determine how you experience that event of riding a roller coaster. If you define it as fear, that sets up whether you're going to enjoy it or not and whether you'll ever want to do it again. Fear generally leads to, no, I didn't enjoy it, and no, I never want to do that again. Excitement, on the other hand, same physiological sensations, sets up a whole new set of probabilities as to whether or not you're going to enjoy the experience and whether or not you're going to want to do it again. Same physiological event, two words out of many possibilities applied to the situation determine how you experience it and what your future is likely to hold. That is the degree of difference which words you choose makes. Most of us are not consciously making choices about the words we're using to describe any particular event to ourselves. It pays to pay attention to those words and question if that's the only definition that applies. To live our lives powerfully involves being responsible for what words we're choosing to apply to the experiences we have in our lives, how we're choosing to define the people in our lives, how we're defining ourselves to ourselves in our life. Frequently, those are chosen with very little thought, and it's just like a repeating record. It goes over and over and over again with the same thoughts, and we rarely stop to question, is this the only way this can be defined? Are these the only words that apply? To do that means you have to actually pay attention to what you're creating. Now, understanding that in the beginning there was a thought, and the thought became a word, which then took on form and substance. That is a very important understanding, which means that it really does belong in the realm of responsibility to pay attention to what you're telling yourself in your thoughts, where your focus is, and what you are speaking into existence, because we truly do speak it into existence. We do that by the actions we then take based on the words that we have spoken. Those words can create all kinds of realities, empowering or not, and we frequently are not aware that those were arbitrarily chosen words to define what it is we wish to create in the world. We're also very rarely aware of where our focus is. Are we focusing on what we wish to create in our lives? Or are our words all about what we don't want, what we fear happening? It's important to be very aware of what focus you have. Where are you putting your attention? Because attention has a magnifying effect. So if you're focusing on things that you don't want or things that you're afraid of happening, by focusing your attention on that, you're just about calling that experience to you to show you that you can indeed survive it. The universe doesn't care whether it's a positive, I want this, or a negative, I don't want this. All it understands is that there is a focus on this event, situation, circumstance, person, and that focus will then draw more energy to it. So again, I challenge you, take a look at the words you're using inside your own head first. Then listen to what you're saying in the world to other people or about other people. Question whether this is really the only possible definition that could apply, and what would happen if you chose a different word or if you chose a different focus. What would that create as compared to what you're creating with your present thought or focus or words? What is it that you want in the future? What is it that you see in the now? Are you focusing exclusively on the things that are missing? or are you focusing on the blessings and the gifts that are present in the now? It's a very powerful thing to look at the gifts that are present now as opposed to what's missing. You'll create more blessings by focusing on the blessings and being grateful for whatever is present in your life. Far more satisfaction in life than when you're looking at what's missing or what's not right. We also have a tendency to experience things based on what our thoughts and words are. You can't have a thought or a belief about something without experiencing it from both perspectives. That means from being on the receiving end of it as well as on the dishing it out end. That would be a universal law, and it's expressed in many religions. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. What you sow, you reap. The basic universal law of for every action there's an equal and opposite reaction. Even science gets that what you put out is going to come back and you will see it from the other side. So it pays to pay attention to what it is you're putting out there. Where is your focus? How are you seeing other people? Are you seeing them as empowered, perfect beings? Or are you focusing on the many little flaws that we all have? Are you still holding on to pains and hurts from your childhood and you're 40 years old? That locks you in to that past pattern. You cannot grow, you cannot move forward, you cannot have a healthy relationship without resolving those childhood hurts and pains. Otherwise, you have an unhappy child running your life, and that's not a particularly workable way to go through life. It's a fundamental question of, are you seeing life as half full or half empty? It's that basic fundamental focus that determines what we get in life. Our internal words determine who we experience ourselves as, what possibilities we feel we're capable of, what we choose to create in our world. And those may or may not be consistent from age to age. As we grow older, what we thought was important does have a tendency to shift. What we define ourselves as being or capable of does change over time. So take a look at what you're telling yourself. Take a look at what you're speaking out into the world when you talk to other people about it. What is your truth? And is that really the only truth that there is available? Is that really the only word that can apply? And where is the focus behind it? As with all things, this is not necessarily the absolute end-all truth, and it's certainly not to go get all upset about or cause problems in the world. This is an idea to consider, to explore, to play with. We don't have to be threatened by new ideas. Those can just expand our experience, expand our expression, and we may decide we don't particularly care for it after we play with it for a little bit. But at least play with it for a little bit. At least look at it. Take a look. Anytime something comes along and challenges your cherished beliefs, because they may need to be expanded, they may need to be challenged, especially if they're based on other people's thoughts, other people's understandings, and especially historically held other people's understandings. Look for yourself. You are a perceiving machine, and you have a whole set of programming that can be examined. When you do examine that programming, when you do allow new ideas to come in to update whatever it is you believe to be true, then you have the ability to grow. To be stuck with only this is the way this is and this is the only way it can ever be shuts down the possibility of growth. And I believe that growth and expression are the main reasons why we come into the physical plane to experience life as we know it. What else can we do? What else can we take with us other than our lives, our memories, our experiences with others? So take a good look at what's going on inside your own head and question, is that the only way it can be defined? Take responsibility for the words you're choosing to use about the events, the people, and the expectations you have for your future. It can be very enlightening and it can be very empowering when you take responsibility for it.